Hey, Neil McDonnell here, president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. I'm excited today to have Jutta Bangs from the Tennessee PTAC, and she'll introduce herself a little bit more in a second. But I'm excited to have her here to talk about PTAC from her perspective. I talk to industry constantly with small businesses in particular about how PTACs are one of your informal board of advisors. These mentors, counselors are there to help us succeed. And often we don't take advantage of them. And so I'm hoping Jutta will be able to give you motivation to call your local PTAC if you're not in Tennessee, where she and her colleagues are at. So we're going to roll through today. And I am trying to target today's podcast less so to brand new small businesses who she absolutely helps. But some of you who've been in business 5 and 10 years, I want you to understand that PTACs are still very valuable to you, whether you're a $5 company or a $50 million company that's in that small range and getting ready to graduate. We can all benefit from working with a PTAC counselor. And so I'm excited that she's here today. And so Jutta, I want to give you a chance to introduce yourself, but also when you do, can you let us know just what motivates you to be a PTAC counselor to help small businesses?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me today, Neil. I appreciate it. So as I said, my name is Jutta Bangs. The first thing I kind of usually put out, everybody's wondering, where is she from? What kind of accent is that? So I'm originally from Germany. I came over from Germany about 20 years ago and realized that the degree I had earned meant nothing over here in the US. And I kind of had to start from scratch. So I became a non-traditional student and I started my own business. So I've been an entrepreneur for 20 years and I realized how difficult it is to be, your paycheck is the last one at the bottom of the stack, if there even is one left. And I, at that time, became a client of the Small Business Development Center in Wyoming, actually. And after I had been in business for a couple of years, I was like, gosh, I wish there would have been something like that when I started or I had known about it. So that was kind of started my passion to help other small businesses to have the resources they need. That's kind of where that passion came from. So I've operated my small business full-time. It is not part-time. So about 15 years ago, I started working for a Small Business Development Center. At that point, I kind of wanted to scale my own business down. And I figured the next best thing to running your business is helping somebody else run their business and learn from the things that you had painfully encountered and learned the hard way. You know, we all have those lessons like, gosh, wish I would have known such and such. So I was a director of a Small Business Development Center for 14 years. And I've always closely partnered with my PTAC here in Tennessee. So I knew the team and everything. And when an opportunity came, about 2 years ago, I joined PTAC, and we call ourselves a small but mighty team. We're a staff of 5, and we cover the whole state of Tennessee. And we're all very like-minded. We are here to help the businesses succeed. As you said, also the ones just starting. That's perfect. But we are here also to support these existing mature contractors with their more sophisticated needs. So we're not just for the guy that's just starting up, but also the one that has been business. But that's where my passion comes from, because I'm an entrepreneur at heart and I've used some of these services myself.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. And that been there, done that kind of background that you have, you get it. It's one of the things I say when I start talking on the training I do. One of the opening lines I say is, I was a small business owner in the federal market for 20 years. I get it. I've been there and I've done all sorts of things wrong, right? I'm here to teach you not just the right ways, but also the things I should avoid. Mm-hmm. So I appreciate you being here. We're going to try to cover as many topics as we can in like the next 20, 25 minutes here. And the idea is I do want to kind of escalate with the, let's say, the complexity of our discussion to really, how does PTACs help those small businesses that are in the, let's say, $10 million and above business? You're still small, but there's still a lot we're learning. And I've been there, right? But at a beginning level, just so people who aren't totally familiar with PTACs, what's the general pitch line of what PTACs offer any business out there? What are the typical services?
Right. So some of the typical service that kind of break down in two main areas. We do training and conferences, and we do counseling. So in a nutshell, this is kind of what we provide. Now the counseling is customized. So we don't have like just one like boxed service and here's the spiel. It's really customized to you, your business, your needs, where you are at what stage in the contracting. We have clients who have been government contracted for 20 or more years, and they still come back to us for advice. What we find oftentimes, you need somebody neutral to kind of run an idea by. Somebody who wouldn't just say, that sounds great, you should do that. So there's value in having a neutral person kind of try to plug some holes, or before you make a big pitch to a prime, let's practice that. What questions might you be asked? What are some things that might come up? Do you have an answer for that? As you grow more into those bigger contracts, there's huge value in showing that you are prepared and you have all the answers. And unless you practice that, I don't care how long you've been in business, you're going to stumble your way through. And I always say you only have that one time for that first impression, and there's no do-over.
Yeah, that's funny. I mean, respectfully, I tell people you have do-overs until they kick you out, but I get your point. You only have one time for a first impression. Your second impression better make up for your bad first impression. But one of the things you just said, which I love, is I teach businesses that you must have a call plan before you go into a meeting. And so I provide just this call plan template for free to people that guides them through what's the purpose of this meeting, what are we trying to get out of it, and what are the questions we're going to ask. And so it just gives you basically a meeting minute. Yep. As an agenda kind of thing. And I like how because one of the things I've told people is go role play it with your colleagues, with your mirror, with your dog. I don't care who it is, not to compare PTACs to dogs now, but to your colleagues. But that's awesome that you're saying people can come in and do exactly that. Maybe if they put together a call plan, they can get a little feedback from you on the quality of the call plan, and then maybe even practice it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And a lot of companies, especially if they're of technical nature, they fall into that jargon. So the other point is know who you're meeting with. Are you meeting with a technical contact or a small business specialist, the end user, the buyer, the contracting officer? Just be mindful of who you're talking with and target your pitch, your capability briefing, whatever it may be, to your audience. It should always be in some way scripted, where you know what you're covering, but it needs to be natural and adaptive enough to tailor it to you, who you're talking to. And the other point is, I love the agenda point that you mentioned. It also helps you to make sure you can cover everything that you need to mention, so you're not running out of time. And you also understand you need to leave some time. If they're giving you 15 minutes, don't talk for 15 minutes. Give them the opportunity to pause, ask you a question. You've probably seen that too, where people just take the whole 15, 20 minutes to talk, and your potential customer, we're out of time. And you've learned nothing. Right?
You just vomit words. Yeah.
Right?
Well, I love that you're telling, because this is actually a new tip for me on PTACs. There's people like me who are out there where somebody could pay for us to work one-on-one with them. Some people are affordable. People like me are really expensive. You need to be going to your PTACs as this, what I call no additional cost. It's not free because somebody was paying for it. So it's available to you at no additional cost.
Yes.
But for these PTACs to be your first BD coach, if you will, capture coach, before you start coming to people like us, come pay us, but go to them first, because you get this experience, and that's so great. So that's a great tip there. Going with people coming in and getting services. I know that you were saying earlier that one of the biggest questions people ask, and I might be butchering it a little bit, but when I'm getting started, where do I look, and kind of who's buying what I sell, et cetera. What's your advice, like your one big tip for people who are struggling on where do I go?
So one of my favorite sayings, if you will, is you need to look in the rearview mirror first. You need to see what has happened to find out where you're going. Figure out who is already buying what you sell. May that be a product or a service. That is your low-hanging fruit. Because you don't need to spin your wheels trying to contact an agency that doesn't even procure what you're offering, right? That's just a waste of time. You want to work smarter, not harder. So do your research on who has purchased what you're buying. And that is also true for the more experienced contractors. It's not just for the new ones. Everybody needs to hear that. Yeah. Once you have done that, you would not believe how often we hear from procurement officials or small business managers that people don't do their homework. They don't go on the website. They don't look for the forecast. They start a capability briefing and say, so you customer so-and-so, what do you want to buy from me?
And I can tell you 2 or 3 of those things that you want to buy from me. Yeah, yeah.
But you need to be prepared, know who they are, what their mission is, and then how you fit in. How can you help them be successful? Wouldn't that to you as a customer be really important? How can you help me? And
Jutta, this is looking in the rear view mirror, and you were talking about the tools. Is this part of the training that people can get from PTACs, whether Absolutely. It's yours or somewhere else on those tools? Absolutely.
We use a lot of the tools that are available to everybody, like USAspending.gov, the FPDS, SAM has a data bank as well, but we have some additional tools. And often, yeah, there is that software, but you might need a little guidance on how you use it properly.
Yeah, yeah.
There's so much data, but how do you filter that down? That can be overwhelming for anybody. Where do I start? There's 50 fields and filters, and what do I best look for? Do I use an X code? Do I use a keyword? Do I use both?
By the way, if I interrupt you, that's exactly what the buyer struggles with as well. There's so much, so many people, vendors out there. How do they find you? Yes. Going to your PTAC and getting reviews of DSBS or your capability statement or something, so that you appear to the buyer in the best light. That's something else you guys, is that part of kind of the counseling?
Yes, and actually you bring up a great service that we offer too, matchmaking. You described exactly what the matchmaking is about. You have a bunch of vendors, you have a bunch of agencies. The vendors want to sell something, the buyers need to find it. How do you get them together? So we have conferences and matchmaking events where we advertise our events to the vendors, and we invite the agencies, the primes, to come, and they can meet. And it's first in a conference format, but we also use a software where we can set up matchmaking meetings for them.
Okay.
So imagine a virtual environment and you have your own meeting room between a vendor and a buyer for like 10, 15 minutes, and they can talk. It's a private meeting room. And they can discuss further, is there a need? Can we maybe continue that conversation? It's like speed dating for business.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, that's like that's a good long time. And especially if you're using a tool, which I think I know which tool you might be using, but where it kind of vets, because a big challenge with matchmaking in my eyes for both parties is you never really know who's on the other side. But if you actually do a little bit of preparation, then the host can make sure that it's a good meeting for both the buyer and the seller. I want to pull a thread.
Try to use what we call reverse matchmaking. So the conference or the webinar is like a feeder where we get companies to attend, and we ask them for their capability statements and the next codes when they register. Then we can provide that list to the agency. They say, I want to meet with this, and this person. Then we set up those meetings for them.
Let me pull a thread on that though, Jutta. If I'm developing a relationship with you as my counselor, and you feel I'm procurement ready at a certain stage, because I actually personally don't believe anybody should be doing business with the federal agencies until they've done subcontracting for 3 years. That's my personal thing, but that's a different day. But if you thought that I was procurement ready, are you or other counselors capable of and willing to make introductions directly, independent of the matchmaking events, but almost be able to say, hey, we work with this agency down the street or something?
Absolutely. And that's another great benefit that PTAC provides, because we know all those small business specialists. We know the procurement people. So we can pick up the phone or send them an email saying, hey, I have a client who's ready that would like to meet with you. We even go a step further. We're in the meeting. We're introducing them. We're saying, hey, small business specialist, we have a relationship with them. Let me introduce you to one of my clients. Really great company providing this and that service. And we're right there with them. We're kind of bringing them not just to the door, we're opening the door for them, going in the room with them. Doing that introduction. And that is valuable because, as you know,
it's hugely valuable.
Procurement people or small business specialists are inundated with emails, business cards, capability statements. So is it easier if we call and contact them? You bet it is. And they know what we bring, they're really ready.
No, that's exactly it. I don't make introductions anymore for people. I've told them, look, I will teach you how to make your own introduction. But when I make an introduction, it's a big deal because I'm putting my stamp of approval on you that in this case that you're describing, that they're procurement ready. Yes, you can work with them. Yes, they can support the mission. And so it's great. And this is something I just want the people listening to pay attention to, is that you don't go in and ask a PTAC for an introduction. You go in and develop a relationship and have Jutta understand your business and the level of maturity you're at so that she feels comfortable making the introduction. So
often we say, you're not ready. Wait until you're ready. And then we make that introduction. So I'm always big on
that's hard for people.
Encouraging the person, but discouraging certain actions at certain times. So there's a big difference. You still want to be encouraging the development of the company at the right pace, because going too fast or winning by some chance a contract and then not being able to perform, that is much worse than waiting a little bit to be ready.
Let me pull us back a little bit because it's such great information. And by the way, feel free to reach out directly to your local PTAC counselor. If you're in Tennessee, contact Jutta. But I want to get more gems out of you in the next 10, 15 minutes we got. But going with this thread of introductions, right? We're talking about whether somebody might be ready or not. But I was talking to you before this, we started recording here, is that there's a lot of businesses doing $10 million or $20 million a year, solidly still as small. Why should these people come to you? And I will say that I'm the worst, right? In my last company, I was like, what do I need to go to PTAC for? I got all these people working for me. Should those people be coming to you, whether it's the owner or can the capture lead and the business developers and those small businesses come?
Oh, absolutely. Anybody in the company can come talk with us. So we have, first of all, a lot of specialty services for more mature business. For example, we're heavy in the SBIR, STTR innovation world. So that is something where your company might be mature and you might be interested in some of those opportunities. We obviously help you understand solicitations. They're getting bigger and more complex. Another trend we see a lot, joint venture teaming. And that's a whole other discussion. I might know how to find my customer, but how in the world do I find a teaming partner? How do I do that?
Yeah.
Hey, PTAC, do you maybe know somebody who also told you, hey, we're looking for a teaming partner? So we're back at the matchmaking theme, right? Not just between the buyer and the seller.
You get commission on matchmaking people or something. Is that what it is, Jutta?
Right. But it's just a kind of a similar concept where you're bringing people together that want to partner in some way or another. So how do you vet even a potential partner? How do you go about that? Another nugget I'd like to mention is there are many databases available where you can search for potential contracting opportunities outside of SAM.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. You told me about looking in the rear view mirror. How about looking out the front window?
Now we're looking at the front window and we're saying, okay, where do I find the contracts by this agency or these agencies that I've identified, what they have? First of all, we help them understand that not everything is in SAM. A lot of people don't understand that. There's a certain dollar threshold. And only if you build those relationships with your buyers will you ever know about them. But that's a different thing. So let's say it's an opportunity that would be on SAM. So we have a service called Bid Match, where we can set up a profile for your business. You tell us, in which states am I interested in? In what NAICS codes am I looking for? What are some keywords that I'm interested in? And we build you a profile. And then our software goes out and searches the web for opportunities that match. And all you get is an email in your inbox that says, hey, here's an opportunity that matches what you told us. And guess how much that costs you?
$1,000.
Nothing. All it takes is being a PTAC client. So first of all, you're saving the money on yourself subscribing to some database that may or may not have what you need.
Oh, yeah.
Plus, what do you think how many hours you save?
Well, that's what I was going to ask you is not to challenge it too much, but to get a little clarity around it. And in particular, I like to keep this discussion we're having around the federal space, but how is that different than what somebody might get from SAM, just so they understand the difference of what's coming? Because I know SAM, for a lot of us, I'll put me in there too, it's just confusing, and I'm an expert.
Yes. One of the things that we find in SAM quite a bit there, and I get often questioned, why are there inactive solicitations? There are lots and lots of inactive ones that have expired already. So unless they are turned off by a contracting officer, there's like a magic button that says become inactive after so many days.
Yeah.
There are some who have been floating there for years. SAM is not the most intuitive and easy tool to kind of run reports. For example, something I like in USA-spending.gov, for example, is where with 4 clicks, it will show you your top 10 agencies. And even your sub-agencies, and it shows you all these awards. What really is the difference in our system, that we go not just to SAM, it also picks up local and state opportunities. And it customizes it for your needs and your profile and sends it to your inbox. So it's not just going to
daily
SAM.
or weekly?
You can set it up, you can get them daily.
Okay, yeah. Let me switch higher. We got like 10 minutes left, 5-10 minutes. Because this idea of looking in, right? If I find opportunities on, let's say I see an opportunity on the email that I get, I'm going after it. And again, I want to stay away a little bit from people who are brand new. And I'm talking about people who have been in for a while and they have some past performances, whether it's as a sub or even a prime, but they've got federal experience one way or another. How does, maybe you in particular, but PTACs in general, how might a PTAC counselor help a business, a capture person or a business owner, help them when they're looking at the opportunity before the RFP drops, and what they might help with, if at all? Like, I know you don't write the proposal. So during the proposal phase, those 2 phases, capture and proposal, what are some of the things that a PTAC counselor might be able to help with?
Right. So what I love about the whole proposal writing is that at least 80% of it is not writing. It should be called proposal planning of your time. It's not saying the writing is not important, but only 20% of the whole time you put in is the actual writing part. There is a lot of work to be done around the capture planning. You kind of mentioned that a moment ago. How do we go about that? Another huge part goes into is the pricing. Do you know what your price is? Do you know what your wrap rate is? Have you reevaluated it? That's something we help with as well. Have you built in a sufficient profit? Do you know all your costs, your direct, your indirect costs? So you would be surprised, even the more established companies struggle with that.
Oh yeah, no, nowadays I wouldn't be surprised, but I'm with you. I was surprised. It's those kind of things. Is that something that people would expect to see more in the one-to-one consult or counseling, or is it what they would see in that training part that you talked about?
So we do training on, like, for just a high level, what is an indirect cost? What is an indirect cost?
Yeah.
Those kind of things. But in the counseling, we actually look with you at your financials. and will help you figure out what is your rate, for example, or what are your capabilities. Talk about capabilities. We also help with the whole branding. How does your company look to others? If I look at 4 or 5 different media of your company, would I know you're the same? Your website, your capability statement, your business cards, your proposal, right? It should all be very, very much alike.
I like that one line you
put. Kind of update just one, but not the rest.
Yeah.
So that is a huge part where we again look from a neutral view and say, looking at this from a neutral perspective, again, do I get your win strategy?
Or
what is your
you're kind of looking at it from a buyer's perspective.
Yes, absolutely.
In that role playing kind of a way.
And again, the whole lingo. You got to understand that the first person who will read your proposal is not the end user who will understand what you're talking about.
Yeah.
If I don't get it, and another colleague who might look at it doesn't get it, you might want to rewrite and explain. And don't throw every acronym in just because you can.
Put it in an appendix called acronyms.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
But again, going back to what I said earlier, know your audience.
But you're making a really good point, Jutta, is that sometimes people think that if I'm a technical cloud architect, then I'm going to submit a proposal and a cloud architect is going to evaluate it and award it or not award it. It's like, well, no, it's a team. And some of the people are cloud architects and some of them are PTAC counselor turned contracting officer or whatever.
Yes.
And it's in having that narrative that actually reads. And so that's where you guys are able to help is kind of, do you even do like draft reviews of a proposal?
Oh, absolutely. We do draft reviews. And another thing is too, that we're big on, take a close look at the instructions. Do you follow all the instructions? It seems mundane, but you can lose points left and right by not following the instructions. We also heavily focus on the evaluation criteria. How do they evaluate your proposal and how strong is it in those sections? That is super important. So follow that and don't kind of cut that short. And another kind of vague term is they're all looking for best value. What is that thing? Best value and how you show best value. So we have a lot of discussions around that. And what makes you different? I mean, everybody's going to say, we're the best company, we deliver on time, we're the greatest, hire us. Nobody would say anything else. That's not a differentiator.
That's an expectation.
What really makes you different?
Yeah.
Tell your story. What makes you different? Talk about some projects you had, some successful proposals that you won. Maybe have a testimonial even from some of your buyers, like, hey, super easy to work with. Another thing that we talk about too.
That's really good. That testimonial. You're talking about like putting that in the proposal, right? That's really good.
Another thing that we talk about a lot is debriefing. You did not win
after a proposal.
Yes, after you submit a proposal and you did not win. You can ask for a debriefing where you can learn about why did I not win? Where was I deficient? You learn from that, and next time you do better, right? Was my price too high? Was it not the best value? Where did I rank? There were maybe 5 proposals. Was I second? Was I last? So we even recommend you get a debriefing if you won.
Yeah, I was going to ask, and I want to ask briefly on this because we're almost out of time and I want to get one more question in. But on the debriefing part, is that something that we could expect from a PTAC counselor is to come back and say, this is what I heard from the debriefing. Could you help me understand what it means type thing? I mean,
yes,
soundboarding.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. So yeah, they come back and say, okay, this is what I've learned. Now let's start to work on improving on that so we can do better the next time. It's a continuous cycle. And no matter how long you've been doing the contracting world, you always learn from a debriefing.
Yeah. shoot, I learned from these podcast interviews, which are awesome. And I've been doing this a long time. Let me ask you this last question, and feel free to tell me if I'm catching a little bit off guard, right? But one of the things that smalls, in particular ones who've got some experience in the federal space, want to do is to meet larges. Is that an expectation of being able to meet not just SBLOs, but that would be good, but meeting or getting any kind of introduction help from a PTAC counselor to a large prime that might be in your state in particular?
Absolutely. We're really big on that. We have really great relationships in Tennessee and outside of the state with prime contractors. And most contractors start being a sub to somebody else. Hardly ever do you get a direct contract with an agency. But we help a lot. The primes often come to us and say, we're looking for companies like such, socioeconomic category, NAICS codes. Do you know of anybody? So they come to the PTAC. And then we look for our client list and say, hey, this fits exactly who they're looking for. Let me make an introduction for you. Just for an example. Again, invaluable, right?
No, it's incredible. And actually your answer is even better than I would have hoped for the end of this podcast interview, because I tell people that PTACs are one of the 7 mentors that I believe should make up your informal board of advisors. And you should meet with them on a regular basis, at least every month, if not every 2 weeks, just for 5 minutes, 15 minutes or something. So you're on their radar, but it's in particular because of what Jutta just said, of sometimes the buyer or a large prime might come in and say, hey, we're looking for these type of businesses. Are you working with any that might fit our need? It's like, oh yeah, company A, B, and C are, all doing that. Here, let me send that information over. And that's a very powerful way that PTACs can help folks out there. We've kind of went through really fast on the time. It was great. I mean, from my perspective, I really like the tips, and I think the listeners will as well. I wanted to ask you, just as we wrap up here, if people want to get to know, to start a relationship with a PTAC counselor, how can they find theirs? Or if they want to follow back up with you directly, can they? And if they can, how can they reach you? So that kind of.
Absolutely. So the PTACs, you can find the PTAC in every state. Let me just say that. And there is a website, and maybe you guys can add that to the podcast.
Yep.
So it's called Association of Procurement Technical Assistance Centers, APTAC. And we have 94 centers in the United States. So wherever you are, there's a PTAC near you. And you can go to the website, and we can add that to the podcast here. They are also more than welcome to contact me directly, and you have my email address.
Can we put that information in the description?
Which you can add. Absolutely. So yeah, we're here. We're everywhere. Every PTAC works a little different, but we're all here to help you succeed in the governmental marketplace. May that be, let me add too, it's not just federal. It is local and state and federal. So to get experience, maybe you might want to start with your city, your county, your school system, your state, before you grow into the federal market. I know you and I talked earlier about the experience level, and that you should be in business for a few years before you tackle the government marketplace. And you can grow into it.
We'll have another conversation someday. I'm a big advocate of, if you're going to be in the federal, just get all in, because if you start off as a subcontractor, that's basically like the juniorest level you can be, and you will get mentors of other small businesses who teach. Right. And I know you guys believe that as well, but we're out of time, so I want to wrap us up. But I did want to say thank you very much for joining us today. It was awesome information you shared. Any last minute tips or anything you want to share with the audience?
No,
I remember going away.
Appreciate everything you're doing. I often tune into your podcasts and any kind of emails you send out. I always find some good nuggets. So I truly appreciate what you're doing as well, Neil.
Thank you. Yeah, this is perfect. I'm hoping to have you back, and maybe we pick a particular topic and go deep dive on it. Okay, yeah. So I want to again thank Jutta Bangs for joining me. I'm Neil McDonnell, GovCon Chamber of Commerce. We have all sorts of training and tips just like this. So take a look at the podcast, or take a look at our website, govconchamber.com. And we're a wrap.